It's game 5 of the World Series. Dodgers lead the series 3-1 and also lead the game, but are hanging on by a thread. Not only because it's a one-run game, but because of who the Dodgers had left pitching-wise to try and close this game out. They were thin as hell, and one of the only options left in the bullpen was 37-year-old Daniel Hudson, who was far from good to go, feeling pain in his forearm as he warmed up. But there's a whole lot that led to this moment. 15 years worth of innings, injuries, obstacles. So let's go back to the beginning. It's 2008 and the Chicago White Sox draft Daniel Hudson in the 5th round as a starting pitcher, and he promptly soared through the minor leagues, starting 2009 in low A and working his way all the way up to AAA by August, jumping up 3 levels, and by September, just a little over a year after getting drafted, Hudson was a big leaguer where he'd pitch mostly out of the bullpen but did make a couple of starts and overall did well. Now, he wasn't officially in the White Sox plans for 2010, at least not to begin the year, because he'd start 2010 back in AAA where he was pretty good enough to be the guy the White Sox relied on to replace the injured Jake Peavy in the rotation, who was now out for the year. So Hudson gets called up, he's back in the big leagues now as a full-time starter, and things weren't as smooth this time around. He was bad, really bad. Now granted, it was in 3 starts. Like, it's not that the White Sox quickly gave up on him necessarily, they just felt it was an appropriate move to trade Hudson a couple weeks after bringing him up to try and win now, sending him to Arizona where he'd join a last-place Diamondbacks team in exchange for another starting pitcher, Edwin Jackson, a man who was less loyal in his playing days than Nick Cannon is with women. This guy had the strangest career ever, but it's so cool in its own weird way. Edwin Jackson had a 17-year career and played for 14 teams throughout it. He legit played with almost half the entire league, and he once threw a no-hitter against the Rays where he walked 8 hitters with a pitch count of 149. If you weren't aware of any of this before, I promise I'm not making any of this up. An 8-walk no-hitter. The White Sox saw this and said, sign me the hell up, trading for him about a month afterward. This happened right before the trade, and as a result, Hudson was now a D-back, and after joining them, he became one of the best pitchers in all of baseball for the rest of that season, making 11 starts and pitching to a nice little 1.69 ERA in about 80 innings. He was awesome, and obviously a sign of good things to come, and that only continued for 2011, where Hudson finally had his first full crack at being a starter in the big leagues, making 33 starts and throwing 220 innings while pitching to a really good 3.49 ERA. He was the complete opposite of a strikeout pitcher, like he just did not really strike many hitters out at all, but that's not what Hudson was ever about. He relied on getting unthreatening contact, and it worked. I mean, a 3.5 ERA and 220 innings is no coincidence. That's a lot of innings. The dude just ate him up and was effective in the process for a Diamondbacks team that ended up winning almost 30 games more than they did the year before, going from last place in their division to first, while the White Sox ended up only regressing from how they were in 2010, and also trading away that slut Edwin Jackson. So Arizona was in good hands now with the better end of that deal, but little did anyone know at the time, 2011 would be the last time Hudson threw anywhere close to forget 200 innings, but 100 innings. He was about to go through a career-altering path, one that seemed like the unluckiest, most unfair and brutal wave of events a pitcher could have, but one that only ended up building Hudson up to be a much bigger badass than he ever was in 2011. And this path began in July of 2012. This painful path. Hudson was straight up awful to begin 2012, just clearly not the same guy who took the mound a year earlier. His arm wasn't right, and by July he had to settle for Tommy John surgery. So he was done for 2012 and would start rehabbing and pitching again in 2013, yet on June 4th, less than a year after his surgery, Hudson would re-tear his elbow during a rehab start in the minor leagues. He re-tore the damn thing and had to get Tommy John surgery again. Now, there are several pitchers in baseball history who have gotten multiple Tommy John surgeries, but this is unheard of. To get it back-to-back times, twice in the span of 11 months, that's insane. And it obviously doesn't get much more deteriorating than that, just repeatedly getting kicked in the balls. He'd end up staying with the D-backs on a minor league contract after 2013, and after a successful rehab attempt in 2014, one that didn't result in yet another snap of the elbow, thankfully, Hudson returned late and briefly out of the bullpen for just 3 appearances. They didn't go very well, but he was fully back in 2015. Still now as a reliever, which clearly was going to be the plan moving forward for Hudson, and he wasn't anything special, But he threw almost 70 innings and was solid for what he was, but after struggling bad in 2016, the D-backs didn't care to bring him back, which is when the Pirates came calling with a 2-year, $11 million contract. And he wasn't awful in 2017, but wasn't really that good either, and as a result, the Pirates didn't have much of an issue trading him away to the Rays, which seemed like the perfect scenario for Hudson. I mean, the Rays are an organization known for taking journeyman guys who nobody cares about and turning them into really good players, especially pitchers. So this actually may have been the best case scenario. Until the Rays released him about a month later. That's where the Dodgers came calling, another team with a good track record of reviving careers, giving Hudson a minor league contract where he'd make the team and just continue what he did with the Pirates the year before. He didn't suck, but he wasn't very good and also missed the last month of 2018 with an arm injury. So he's back out on the market, signing another minor league contract now with the fake LA team, only for them to drop him almost immediately, which is where the Blue Jays decided to take him in. And look, at this point, obviously Hudson is just barely surviving in the league. He has a concerning injury history. He's not getting any younger, and he hasn't shown any sort of reason to have any faith in him as any sort of valuable reliever. He was just kind of there. A second thought that some teams like the Pirates and Dodgers threw him out there to see what he could do, while others like the Rays and Angels didn't even bother to do that. But little did we all know in early 2019, Daniel Hudson was about to change his career for the better in a massive way. He starts the year with his new team willing to give him a chance in Toronto and was pretty good with them. Now, it's not like he was insane, but 4 months into the season, he'd thrown 48 innings for the Blue Jays, was averaging a strikeout per inning, and had an ERA right at 3. Again, was he the hottest of commodities? No, but he was still an arm likely to be wanted by a contending team, and that's exactly what ended up happening. On July 31st of 2019, trade deadline day, Hudson was traded to the nation's capital to join a Nationals team hoping to shock everyone. And what did they do? Shocked everyone. And what would they have done without Hudson? Not shock everyone, because Hudson ended up being such a vital part of the Nationals championship run that saw them take out the 106 win first place Dodgers, 91 win first place Cardinals, and 107 win first place pennant winning juggernaut Houston Astros. Hudson finished the regular season stronger than he'd been in years, throwing 25 innings with a 1.44 ERA, helping push the Nats to 93 wins in a wildcard spot where he'd get the save after Juan Soto did his thing, dominated the Dodgers in the NLDS where they shocked everyone, and went on to slam the door on the entire season in Houston, a 1-2-3 ninth inning in Game 7. George Springer, sit down. Jose Altuve, swing and a miss, and then Michael Brantley going down on a nasty slider from Hudson, down and in before he'd throw his glove and tell the entire city of Houston to suck on it. And it was a perfect example of how baseball can be. Someone whose career looked to have its back against the wall, only for Hudson to revive it entirely and be an important piece of a championship just months later. And the best part? Hudson's badassery was far from over. He ended up struggling again in 2020, but was back to being dominant in 2021. The Nationals were not, though, and he was back to being traded, this time to a San Diego team pushing for the playoffs. None of it would work out, though, considering the Padres would not make the postseason, and Hudson was not good in the process. He was now back out on the free market, and that's when the Dodgers came calling again. He'd sign a 1-year deal and pitch really well, until Hudson's body decided to fail him yet again, tearing his ACL during a game in June and missing the rest of the season. But the Dodgers still liked him and decided to keep him around for 2023 with an extra option for 2024. But Hudson's body wanted no part of it. He had to begin 2023 on the injured list because of right ankle tendonitis and missed the first 3 months just to come back and tear his right knee 5 days later. But there's even more to this incident. Even after tearing his knee, which happened on a pitch that ended up resulting in a flyout, Hudson still gutted it out for 6 more pitches and struck out Jack Suwinski with the bases loaded to end the inning and save the game. And that was the last time he'd pitch in 2023. And at this point, Hudson started contemplating his future. Which, I mean, it makes sense. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the end. And I mean, hey, after 2019, the way that year ended for him, he accomplished the ultimate goal. So yeah, this wasn't the most ideal scenario, but you know what? It's not like this was all for nothing. He still had some big moments, and Hudson retiring after 2023 wouldn't have been the worst thing. He's got a ring under his belt. And after thinking about it, how much his body had been through, his arm, his ankle, his knee, he's only getting older. It's not like he can provide that much value to any team. Hudson sat down and said, What the hell is one more year anyway? Returning to the Dodgers on a minor league contract for 2024. And that was really the only team he considered signing with. If the Dodgers weren't down for it, Hudson probably retires, but the Dodgers were down for it, and Hudson solidified his career as the ultimate badass that he is. Obviously, it was a minor league contract, but Hudson still made the team and went on to be exactly what the 2024 Dodgers needed: a reliable arm. Hudson was the oldest player on the 2024 Dodgers. His bullpen mate, Blake Trinan, called Hudson the anchor of the group, and catcher Will Smith made a joke when asked to name the most ancient player he could think of in any era, answering with Hudson. Yet, this man went out and ended up having arguably his best season ever as a reliever, not spending a single day on the injured list, throwing 63 innings with an ERA right at 3. And when Walker Buehler came back this year, someone who, like Hudson, had also gotten 2 Tommy John surgeries, and it was his second that he was coming back from this season. So Hudson was an important person, the perfect person to go to for advice. He was able to play the wise mentor role to him, and in poetic fashion, the two warmed up next to each other in the final game while Blake Trinan had his heroic performance. And going back to where we started this video at Game 5, with the Dodgers holding on by a thread, and Hudson and Buehler being really the only reliable guys left to try and close this thing out, Hudson felt pain in his forearm while warming up, which relates to elbow issues. And Dave Roberts wasn't aware of Hudson feeling this pain at the time, but in moments like these, when it's the very end of the year, all hands are on deck. And Hudson would have been willing to blow out his arm again if needed. If the game went to extra innings, Hudson would have been brought in for the 10th. That's what Dave Roberts said, and according to the man himself, Hudson, his arm would have blown out again. But thankfully, it didn't end that way, with the man next to him, another 2-time Tommy John survivor, entering the game and ending it the same way Hudson did in Houston 5 years earlier as a National, slamming the door in the Yankees' faces by striking out the last 2 hitters to win it all for the Dodgers, as the two would soon embrace on the field during the celebration. And it's just incredible. This man gave it everything. He never threw in the towel, no matter how beat down he was over the years, no matter how insanely bleak things looked. This man laid it all out on the table and was willing to give his team and his teammates everything he possibly had, all the way to the very end, even if that led to his elbow exploding for a 3rd time. What a badass. The Dodgers and Daniel Hudson couldn't have aligned at a more perfect time. In a year where the Dodgers had the most injured, battered, and beaten up pitching staff imaginable, it ended up being a man who had a career full of injuries and setbacks, being there all year long, giving this team every last bit of himself he had left and playing a pivotal role in the Dodgers winning a championship before calling it a career. And if that's not beautifully poetic, I don't know what is. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you for watching.